Welcome to Project Freelance. My name is Kay Inigonio, and I am your host here on this podcast, all about freelancing. This week on the podcast, I'm speaking with a graphic designer, 3D artist, motion graphics artist, and an NFT non-fungible token artist named Kideight. And I'm super excited to talk to him. He's been freelancing since the Myspace days, since he was like 16 years old. And I'm super excited to talk to him about how he got into freelancing and what he's doing as an artist and where the future of art is going with these non-fungible tokens. Very exciting episode. But before we get into it, there's a few housekeeping things I need to let you know about. First of which is that I have a photography book called No Tracers, an Urban Explorer's Diary. It's all about exploring abandoned buildings. It's full of my photos and stories of my urban explorations. So if you guys are into that, or if you want to read my blog about urban exploring or see some of my videos of my explorations, you can actually go to notracers.com and check that out. If you're new to Project Freelance, please hit that subscribe button so that you get notified when new episodes come out. And if you've been listening for one episode, 20 episodes, if you've listened to all the episodes, can you please do me a favor on Apple Podcasts? Search Project Freelance, hit the icon, scroll all the way to the bottom of the podcast, and you will see a section for ratings and feedback. If you could do me the solid of leaving me a nice rating and feedback, I will actually send you a signed photo print from an abandoned place I have explored as a way of saying thank you for supporting the podcast. It's absolutely free. It takes like 30 seconds to do, and it really helps us grow on the Apple charts. Helps us find a broader audience. So thank you for doing that. The last thing I need to let you know about is that we have a partner here on this podcast, and that is Liquid Death Water. If you've never heard of Liquid Death Water, don't worry. I've got an ad coming for you in 3, 2, 1. From the streams of the Austrian Alps comes a new kind of water. A water that is sure to raise you from your grave. If you're tired of buying cases of plastic water bottles that contain carcinogens and God knows what else, or if you're trying to lower your waste footprint, Liquid Death comes in beautifully rugged aluminum cans. Murder your thirst with a can of Liquid Death. Check the link in the description and use code JUSTTHELETTERK at checkout for 10% off your order. Liquid Death. Murder your thirst. So if you guys want 10% off your order at liquiddeath.com, use code JUSTTHELETTERK. And without further ado, Kideight, please introduce yourself and how you got into freelancing.
Hi, I'm Kideight. I'm a graphic and motion designer based in England. I've been freelancing since about 2007. I'm based mainly within the music industry, but I am sort of transitioning out of that at the moment.
So what got you into creative arts in the first place? Like, tell me a little bit about your background in this medium. What made you catch this bug?
So I've always been a creative person. Like as a child, I was always drawing and painting. I started doing graffiti when I was about like 12, 13, I started doing graffiti. And around that same time, my uncle gave me a copy, like a cracked copy of Photoshop and Dreamweaver, Flash, basically all the creative suite at the time. And I just started experimenting from there. And from there, I sort of knew this is what I wanted to do in my future.
That's sick. I love that you started out as a real life graffiti artist kind of thing and then went into like digital art. I think that's super interesting how you made that transition over. Do you have any any education as far as graphics design goes? Like what did you study in school? Did you go to college? That kind of stuff?
No, so I haven't really got any. I've never had any sort of formal training. Just self-taught, like playing in Photoshop, playing in the creative suites. But I left home when I was about 16. I had my mum was struggling with mental health issues, so I had to leave home because we weren't really getting along. So around that time, I started making like web layouts for Myspace. It was around the Myspace time, so I was doing web layouts, stuff like that. And at the same time, I've always been into hip hop. That's always been one of my main passions. And I was seeing a lot of like mixtape art being brought out at the time. And being from England, I didn't really know what like, mixtapes were. Obviously, we'd buy XXL magazine and Source, and would go to the like music shops when we could, and get the albums. But albums were like once a year, once every 2 years. And I was seeing mixtapes through Myspace, and they were coming out weekly with all these artists. And I was like, I loved the visual of the mixtape, and I loved how quick it was, and how free the graphics were, and how free it seemed the music was. And I sort of wanted to be a part of that. So that's how I got into graphic. That's how I got into freelancing. I started doing Myspace layouts for sort of local artists, like rappers in the area, and then from there, my name got out and managed to catch the eye of some other people, and from there, it's just been word of mouth. I realise
Wow.
now that was quite. You might have to edit some of that because I don't even know if I've gone off from your original question slightly.
No, you're good. That's what podcasts are all about, kind of just riffing and going around and just talking about everything, So
Yeah.
you did MySpace layouts. What were you charging back then to do like a MySpace layout? Were you doing like the coding? Like what kind of stuff were you doing for those?
Yeah, so if I go back to around the time I got Photoshop when I was about 13, it came with Dreamweaver, and I remember making my first website around the age of 13. So I had some knowledge of coding, and around the time MySpace came around, it was all just basic HTML and CSS. So
Mm,
I was able to edit stuff quite easily, and at the time there was loads of websites with templates, and I just ripped the code, changed the graphics, and
right.
this was when Flash was still um, people were still using Flash on the internet. So I had some Flash background as well. So I was able to put together these layouts for quite cheap, really. I wasn't charging a lot of the time. I can't even remember. Maybe £100, which at the time would have been $150, maybe.
Wow. It's crazy to me just going back to like the MySpace stuff and, coding and doing all the back end, changing the HTML, like all that kind of stuff. Like I'm kind of sad that Facebook kind of came in and took over and kind of pushed MySpace aside because we were all learning how to customize our own stuff, and like if we had continued doing that, I feel like more people would have been into like website building and would have made a ton of money doing that kind of stuff in the future. So I feel like Facebook kind of like made us a little like obsolete in that way because things like, Squarespace with templates and Wix with templates came in and all that stuff. And I know that's like totally outside the realm of graphic design. In a sense, it's kind of the same, but yeah, I just wanted to like touch on that a little bit. Like where did you go after MySpace? Like what did you continue doing after that?
So yeah, around the end of MySpace, I was really heavily into mixtape design. So by the time MySpace had finished, I was doing mixtape designs for some of the mixtape DJs in New York and Atlanta, and in the southern states in America. Like I was doing big mics, some trapaholic stuff,
Mm.
and around 2009, I was doing DJ dramas, some gangster grills. So from there, it was just transitioning really full time into mixtapes and single artwork, some albums here and there. But going back to what you were saying about MySpace, towards the end of the MySpace run, some of those pages were just looking so bad. I think it's probably for the best that the code was taken from everyone.
Oh, for sure, definitely. Yeah, and then we had like the introduction of Tumblr where you could still kind of like customize your own page and stuff like that. For you, like, did you have any quote unquote real jobs while you were trying to get your freelancing business off the ground?
Yeah, so when I was about, so yeah, I said I left home quite early at 16. When I was
Mm,
17, I got a job in like a lorry yard or whatever. I'm stacking lorries with forklift trucks. And I did that for about 4 months. And I was just like, this is the worst use of my time. This is no future. And it made me realize that I had got a talent and I could make money elsewhere. So I suppose the hustler in me came out, and I just dedicated full time to being a freelance graphic designer. And luckily at the time, I managed to find a niche in the market that wasn't really being filled, or if it was being filled, people either the quality wasn't there or they took too long. So I managed to fit myself in where there was a need more than anything. But yeah, other than what was it, 4 or 6 months in a lorry yard, that's the only job I've ever had.
wow, that's incredible. So for you as like a 17, 18-year-old, like how did you find your value and your worth? Like how did you figure out what to charge for this kind of stuff?
Well, the clients basically at the time were telling me what they were paying other people,
Mm,
and this is what they could afford to pay. So if I wanted the job, that's what I'd basically be paid, which at the time was more than I was getting doing anything else. It was more than all my friends. I'd managed to, by the age of 20, buy my first apartment. And that was from being penniless at like 16, 17. So it
Wow.
paid well, but I had to work hard to get there, basically.
For sure. So when did you transition into like 3D design and like motion, like animation and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so the 3D stuff and the motion was really probably about 2.5 years ago now. It was around the time my son was born, and I don't want to say had a breakdown, but I was like, I can't keep just doing the same thing, and it was getting to the point where I was doing single covers for artists at record labels, and they were actually paying the stock websites more than they were paying me.
Oh shit.
So I was like, if I can just create the image from scratch, I can charge more. There's more freedom. If a client wants a small change, I haven't then got to go and find a new stock image, get that cleared. So that's where working with 3D came from. Just the ability and the freedom that came with it. And with that, and the motion came as part of it because now I had the ability to look at an item in 3 dimensions. I could then move cameras around it and move lighting and sort of add interest rather than just a static image. And with Instagram being bigger in the last 5 years, you've got to catch people's attentions on the timeline. So yeah, that's where that sort of went to.
Wow. Yeah, I'm literally sitting here watching your website loop just play over and over again as you're talking, and it's like the stuff you're making is absolutely insane. Like I'm a, videographer and video editor, so I'm used to filming and using real life footage. So to think about somebody creating this 3D world that has motion and moves is like completely just blows my mind. Is like completely out of my wheelhouse, if you will. So how did you learn how to do all the 3D work? Like, did you watch YouTube tutorials? Like, what did you do to figure this out?
I suppose yeah, everything starts with YouTube. I don't think there's any real tutorials on YouTube at the moment that were sort of doing the work I wanted to do.
Mm.
But I think you can piece together elements of what you want to bring into your work through lots of tutorials. But yeah, a lot of tutorials on YouTube is what I've watched, but it's not. I wouldn't. So if you look at my work, there's not one piece that I can say I copied this exact formula from
Right.
YouTube. There might be like I do a lot of particle stuff through a plugin called X Particles in Cinema 4D, and there is so many tutorials um, online, but it's just like finding how you can use that bit within your work. So just YouTube basically. You might want to cut that out a bit, but
I
yeah,
got you.
YouTube.
No worries. So this question can go either way. Some guests don't like to answer it, but I kind of like, going into this a little bit. Have you ever been screwed over by a client, not been paid for something or anything like that?
Oh, 1000%. Yeah, that's so funny. So why don't people normally like answering that?
I don't know. I feel like some people are like, oh, I don't want to like badmouth like the industry or anything like that. But I'm like, yo, as a freelancer, we all get screwed over at one time or another. Like I got scammed out of like $3,000 at one point, So I think we've all been there, and it's important for us to talk about things like that.
Oh well, yeah, no, I've probably been scammed more times than I've had good business contracts with people. I genuinely can't. There's been so many scams. There's like bad business practice scams.
Mm.
I'm just trying to think. I mean, if you don't mind, I'll just try and riff a couple that I can remember. It
Yeah.
wasn't so much a client, but I remember someone set up a fake website with my name. So they had kideightdesigns.com, and they basically posted a load of my work at the time, had a PayPal link, send payment here, send info here, and the job will get done. And then within a couple of days, I was getting people saying, I've sent payment to you, where's my job? I was getting negative reviews. I was getting like not hate mail, but effectively hate mail from people because someone had set up a fake email address and managed
Oh.
to get off with a ton of money. So that wasn't. I'm just trying to think. The thing is, I've been done over by that many clients. I can't even really think of a really bad one. I
Wow.
think it's just par for the course with the industry that I work within, like the hip hop music industry. When you get down to indie level artists, it's all a facade, really. There's not they so people listen to hip hop and think, oh god, they talk about the money, they talk about the riches and
Mm.
all this. Really, none of them have really got it like that. And I think if you're trying to start off within the music industry, especially the hip hop side of it, you've got to just take everyone that they're basically talking bullshit, and you'll be a lot more successful, I think, in the long run. But yeah, it's part of the course in that part. You're going to get done over, which is why I always specify payment in full up front.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's good to know, especially for, up and coming designers and things like that. Like, I think that it's smart that you take payment fully up front. Some people take a deposit and then they take the rest later, and then they never see that, So
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's good that you're doing it that way, and it's security for you in the long run.
And just peace of mind, because there's been so many times when you spend hours on a project and you just never hear from a client again, and it's just demoralizing.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And can we jump into NFTs, crypto art? This is something that's kind of blowing up right now. Can you explain more about what it is, how it works, and why you got into crypto art?
So I don't want to give too much information in case I'm giving false information, but I can tell you how I came into it and what it means to me in the future of my art. But so I've got a friend called Television who is another graphic motion designer, and he told me about it in December. And he said that people were selling their art on the Ethereum blockchain to collectors, and there was a market for it. So I looked into it a bit more, and there are a couple of platforms that basically run on top of the Ethereum blockchain that are essentially online galleries, and they're selling and they curating artists to go on them. So I applied to most of them. Haven't heard back from any of them yet. Well, the majority of them. I'm on two at the moment, which is one's called Rareable, which is basically anyone can get on there. You can mint a piece of artwork and try and sell it. And the other one's called With Foundation, which seems to be a collection of more serious artists. It's invite only at the moment. But NFT, if you don't know, stands for non-fungible token, which a fungible item is like a dollar bill. You can have one, you can swap it for something else. It's exactly the same thing. Whereas an NFT this is the only one of these that exists. If it's a one of one, or it might be a one of 10. So this is the only one of these that exists. And as long as you own the token, that is yours. So at the moment, I think it's still in its infancy as far as artists and designers using it. But it seems to be the collectors that are buying are using it as either a store of wealth, as you would do with Bitcoin, or as a status symbol. I don't know if you've seen some of the 8-bit avatars that are selling for
the punk, the
millions.
like little punk guys,
the cyberpunks, or and the something kitties. I don't even know, because I don't look into that side of it. But all you got to do is look at Beeple. He dropped, I think it was $151 items 2 days ago, and they're already reselling for six figures yesterday. So it's the market it's nuts. But a lot of people are saying it's like the ICO 2.0, where people are going to get wrecked. But there's so much hysteria at the moment. I've been quite successful in the last 2 weeks with it, but it's just given me something to look forward to with my work creatively. So, because after doing client work for 14 years, I've had that many rejections, and all my best ideas seem to be rejected. It's just nice to be able to put something up that I believe in. People like it and pay for it and support it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's cool that you can get paid in a currency, if you will, in Ethereum, where your earnings can grow like exponentially over time. And I think that's so fascinating to watch, and so I think the future of NFTs is going to be huge for artists. And as a photographer, like I'm trying to get in that game as like a photo seller. I would love to sell my photography as NFTs, and I know that photography is still very, very new in the NFT world. So I'm definitely trying to get in there as soon as I can to kind of maximize my spot in that area.
Yeah, I have seen a couple of photographers just cropping up. There's JN Silva. I think he's got a release on Nifty, if it hasn't happened already. But it's definitely happening, and there are more forms of art coming in and absorbing the ground. So I think some platforms are ready to release music as NFTs, which I think is exciting. There was an album, was it Blau? released an album this week that went for 1 million through NFT sales. So yeah,
Wow.
It's interesting, but it feels like a moment in time that the creatives haven't had. Well, in my lifetime that I can remember, where we're able to be sort of self-sufficient, which is very empowering, I feel.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that the future with art is going to be, we have to go digital, and I think COVID really kind of pushed this forward because everything is digital, everything's online right now. So, COVID, there was a lot of negatives, but there was also like a lot of good that came out of it, especially for freelancers.
Yeah, no, definitely. So in England, we've been basically on lockdown for the last 12 months. We had a period of 2 or 3 months where we could go out and restaurants were open. But other than that, we've been stuck in. And I feel like the first lockdown last February, March, everyone was super productive. I was getting lots of work coming in. But then towards the end of the year, it did start to slow down. And it seemed like there was a bit of fatigue, definite fatigue in England with the whole thing.
Right.
But also, I do feel like the music industry in itself has slowed down due to not being able to tour or sell merch or whatever. But yeah.
Yeah, it's been I'm also a musician, so I totally get that. Like I'm a musician and I'm a photographer, videographer, so I travel with bands, when they're on tour, and I've been talking to my manager about like, yo, when are we going to be able to do this again? Like this is absolutely crazy. Like, and people are saying maybe next year. Like we just don't know at this point. And now over here in America, like Texas decided to say fuck it, and they're completely opening up, no masks, nothing, full concerts, everything. Like it's crazy. Like people are just losing their minds at this point.
Yeah, I remember the first time I went out after like 3 months lockdown, and to be so close to a human that wasn't in my household was just insane. But I feel like we've gone through the other side of that. They say in England every adult will be vaccinated by mid-June or July. So
right.
I'm just looking forward to getting back out.
Oh, yeah, 100%. So my last question for you is, what is something you know now that you wish you knew when you started?
Oh, dear. Do you know, I really don't know. That's an interesting question, because I think because my career freelancing has spanned so much has changed from the beginning to now. I don't feel like advice I could give myself back then would really count. I'd probably just say invest in Bitcoin earlier.
For sure. Hey, that's good advice, man. That's actually like really, really good advice for sure. Like even now, like people are like, oh my gosh, like it's so high right now. But like, guys, it's just going to keep going up,
Yeah. I've got a funny story about that. In 2015, I bought a Bitcoin, and it was £300 or something. And I had it on an online wallet, and I lost the login, and that'd be worth obviously 50 grand today. So yeah.
Jesus.
That's why I'm going super hard on Ethereum trying to make this work. But yeah. We live and we learn.
Yeah, absolutely. So if people want to keep following your journey or hire you for some work, where can they find you online? Drop your social media, your website, all that stuff.
Okay, well, you definitely can't hire me for work for the next couple of months. I'm having some me time. But Instagram /Kideight, KIDEIGHT, and /_ let me do that again. Oh, shit. So I'm Kideight on Instagram, KIDEIGHT, and Twitter _Kideight again. I've actually started putting together a Tumblr of all my old mixtape covers from like 2007 up until 2018. And if you go on my Instagram, there's a link tree with a link there. And you can see some of my NFTs on Foundation, which is foundation.app/Kideight.
All right, guys, that was my episode with Kideight. If you guys want to check out some of his work, I've put his link tree and his Instagram down below for you guys, so you can just browse his stuff and see what he's working on. Like he said, he's not available for hire right now. He's taking some personal time, but you can always hit him up in the future, and maybe he'll do some work for you. Thank you guys for listening to another episode of Project Freelance. If you want to come on the show, hit me up at Project Freelance on Instagram or Twitter, and we'll schedule a time for you. I would love to hear your story, how you got into freelancing, built your business, how you found your worth, and just chat about all this crazy stuff that we do as independent contractors. All right, guys, I'll talk to you next week, next Monday at 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time with another episode of Project Freelance. Stay strong, keep enduring, go out and go create something.